The morning sun streamed through the church windows, creating patterns of colored light across the white aisle runner. Maya Rodriguez sat in her wheelchair near the entrance, her hands trembling slightly as her mother adjusted the veil over her face. The wedding dress had been altered 3 times to fit perfectly around her chair, and despite everything, she felt beautiful. Her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and nervousness that every bride feels on her wedding day. 2 years ago, everything had changed in an instant. A drunk driver had run a red light, and Maya's car had been hit on the driver's side. She woke up in the hospital 3 days later to learn that her spine had been severely damaged. The doctors said she would never walk again. Those first months were the darkest of her life. But through it all, her fiancé Robert had been there, holding her hand, telling her that nothing had changed between them. He had promised that their love was stronger than any challenge they would face. Now, as the organ music began to play softly in the background, Maya looked at the full church ahead of her. Friends and family filled every pew, their faces turned toward the entrance, waiting for her to make her way down the aisle. Her father stood beside her wheelchair, looking handsome in his rented tuxedo. He had practiced pushing her chair smoothly for weeks, wanting everything to be perfect for his daughter. "You ready, Mija?" he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Maya nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl. Sure, the dream hadn't included a wheelchair, but Robert had assured her repeatedly that it didn't matter. Love was love, he said. They would figure everything out together. The wedding coordinator gave them the signal, and the main doors opened wide. The traditional wedding march began to play. Maya's father started pushing her chair slowly down the aisle. The guests stood up, turning to watch her approach. She could see some people smiling, others dabbing at their eyes with tissues. Her best friend Anna stood in the front row, beaming with joy. But as Maya got closer to the altar, she noticed something strange. Robert stood at the front with the priest, but his face looked pale. His mother stood beside him, her expression tight and severe. She was whispering something urgently into his ear, her hand gripping his arm. Robert's 2 brothers stood behind him as groomsmen, both looking uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact with anyone. Maya felt her stomach drop. Something was wrong. She could sense it in the air, in the sudden tension that seemed to fill the church. The music continued to play, but it felt like it was coming from very far away. Her father must have sensed it too because his steps slowed slightly. They reached the altar, and Maya looked up at Robert, searching his face for reassurance. But he wouldn't meet her eyes. He was staring at the floor, his jaw clenched tight. His mother stood beside him with her arms crossed, and the look she gave Maya was pure ice. The priest cleared his throat and opened his Bible, ready to begin the ceremony. The music faded away, leaving an uncomfortable silence. That's when Robert's mother did something unthinkable. She stepped forward and took the microphone from the priest's stand. "I'm sorry, everyone," she announced, her voice echoing through the church. "But there will be no wedding today." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. Her father's hand tightened on her shoulder. "My son has realized that he cannot go through with this marriage," Robert's mother continued, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. "It would be unfair to both of them. Robert is a young man with his whole life ahead of him. He cannot be expected to spend the rest of his days caring for someone who will always be dependent on others, someone who can't even walk down the aisle on her own 2 feet. The church erupted. People started shouting. Maya's mother let out a cry of anguish. Her father moved as if to confront Robert's mother, but Maya grabbed his hand, stopping him. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. She just stared at Robert, waiting for him to say something, to tell his mother she was wrong, to defend her, to defend them. But Robert just stood there, still looking at the ground. His silence said everything. "Robert?" Maya's voice came out as barely a whisper. He finally raised his eyes to meet hers. And what she saw there broke her heart into a million pieces. It wasn't love. It wasn't even kindness. It was pity mixed with relief, as if he'd been waiting for someone else to do the hard work of ending things. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I thought I could do this. I really did. But my mom is right. It's not fair to either of us. You deserve someone who can give you the care you need, and I can't be that person." Maya felt tears streaming down her face, but she refused to sob, refused to completely fall apart in front of all these people. Her younger sister Isabella rushed forward and wrapped her arms around Maya's shoulders. "Get out," Isabella hissed at Robert and his family. "All of you, get out right now." Robert's mother grabbed her son's arm and started pulling him toward the side exit of the church. His brothers followed quickly behind. Robert looked back once at Maya, his face filled with something that might have been regret. But he didn't stop walking. The church descended into chaos. Some guests were crying. Others were shouting angrily. Maya's aunts and uncles were demanding answers, creating a scene. But Maya just sat there in her wheelchair, her beautiful white dress spread around her, feeling like her entire world had collapsed. Her father knelt down in front of her, his own face wet with tears. "Come on, baby. Let's get you out of here." He turned her wheelchair around, and together with her mother and sister, they made their way back down the aisle. The aisle she had just traveled with so much hope only minutes before. The guests parted to let them through, their faces showing every emotion, from anger to pity to profound sadness. Outside the church, the spring weather had turned. Dark clouds had rolled in, and a light rain had begun to fall. Maya's family tried to hurry her toward their car, but she asked them to stop. She needed a moment. She needed to feel something other than the numbness that was settling over her. Her mother held an umbrella over her head, but Maya barely noticed the rain that began to fall harder. She looked down at her engagement ring, the one Robert had given her 2 years ago when he'd proposed on the beach at sunset. Back when she could still walk. Back when she was still the person he wanted to marry. With shaking fingers, she pulled the ring off and held it in her palm. Then she threw it as hard as she could toward the church steps. It bounced once on the concrete and disappeared into a puddle. "Let's go home," she said quietly. As they drove away from the church, Maya watched the building disappear in the rearview mirror. Somewhere inside her broken heart, she made herself a promise. She would never let anyone make her feel less than whole again. She would never again believe someone who said her disability didn't matter, when clearly, terribly, it did. What Maya didn't know was that this devastating moment would eventually lead her to someone who would show her what real love actually looked like. But on that rainy April afternoon, sitting in her ruined wedding dress with mascara running down her cheeks, she couldn't imagine ever trusting anyone with her heart again. 3 months had passed since the wedding that never happened. Maya spent most of her days in her small bedroom, staring at the ceiling or scrolling mindlessly through her phone. She had deleted all her social media accounts after seeing the pitying comments and messages from people who had been at the church that day. The story had spread through their community like wildfire, and Maya couldn't bear to face anyone. Her mother would bring meals to her room, often finding them untouched hours later. Her father tried to cheer her up with jokes and stories from his day at work, but Maya barely responded. Even her sister Isabella, who usually could make her laugh no matter what, was running out of ideas. "You can't hide in here forever," Isabella said one Saturday morning, sitting on the edge of Maya's bed. "The world is still out there, and you're still alive. You're still you." "Am I, though?" Maya replied, her voice flat. "Because the person I thought I was got left at that altar. Maybe Robert's mother was right. Maybe I am just a burden that nobody wants to deal with." Isabella's face flushed with anger. "Don't you dare say that. Robert was a coward, and his mother is a horrible person. What happened says everything about them and nothing about you." But Maya had heard these reassurances so many times they had lost all meaning. She knew her family loved her, but love wasn't enough to erase the shame and rejection she felt every single day. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Isabella had been volunteering at the Riverside Community Center, the same place where Maya used to teach art classes to children before the accident. The director, Mrs. Chen, had been asking about Maya for months, saying how much the kids missed her and how the art program hadn't been the same since she left. "Just come with me for one afternoon," Isabella pleaded. "You don't have to teach or do anything. Just come and see the place again. Remember what you used to love." Maya wanted to say no. The thought of going out into the world, of people seeing her, of facing their questions and their pity, made her stomach turn. But something in her sister's voice, a desperation mixed with hope, made her pause. "Fine," she finally agreed. "But just for an hour. And if I want to leave, we leave immediately. No arguments." The community center looked exactly the same. The walls were still painted that cheerful yellow color, and children's artwork still covered every available surface. As Isabella pushed Maya's wheelchair through the main doors, the familiar smell of paint and clay and cafeteria food hit her, bringing back a flood of memories from happier times. They made their way to the art room, where Maya could hear the sounds of children talking and laughing. She felt her chest tighten with anxiety. What if they stared at her? What if they asked uncomfortable questions? Kids were honest in ways that adults weren't, and Maya didn't know if she could handle that right now. But Isabella pushed open the door before Maya could change her mind. The room was full of children, working on various projects. In the far corner, Maya noticed a man sitting with a young girl who looked about 7 years old. They were both staring at a blank canvas, with identical expressions of frustration and confusion. The man had dark hair that needed a trim and tired eyes that suggested he didn't sleep enough. He wore jeans and a faded blue shirt, with paint stains on the sleeves. The little girl beside him had her hair in 2 braids and wore glasses that kept sliding down her nose. She pushed them up repeatedly as she looked at the canvas, then at the palette of paints, then back at the canvas. "I don't know how to make it look like a real butterfly, Daddy," the girl said softly. "It just looks like blobs." "Well, butterflies are kind of blobby if you think about it," the man replied, clearly trying to help but having no idea what he was doing. The girl sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that only a child can make when adults are being ridiculous. "No, Daddy. They're beautiful and delicate, and they have patterns on their wings. Miss Rodriguez used to show us pictures and help us understand the colors." Maya felt something twist in her chest at hearing her name. This little girl remembered her. The man ran his hand through his hair, looking helpless. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm just not good at art like your mom was. Maybe we should try a different project?" "I want to paint butterflies," the girl said firmly, but her voice wavered like she might cry. Mommy loved butterflies. Maya watched as the man pulled his daughter close, kissing the top of her head. There was such love and such sadness in that gesture that Maya felt tears prick her own eyes. She could see this was a father doing his absolute best to fill a space that couldn't be filled, trying to be everything his daughter needed even when he clearly felt inadequate. Before she could think better of it, before her anxiety could stop her, Maya wheeled herself closer to their table. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I couldn't help but overhear. Would you like some help with the butterfly?" The little girl's head snapped up, and her eyes went wide behind her glasses. The pure joy in the child's voice was like a light turning on in a dark room. The girl jumped up from her seat and wrapped her arms around Maya's shoulders, hugging her tightly. Maya felt herself hugging back, something inside her chest cracking open just a little bit. "I missed you so much," the girl whispered. "I kept asking when you were coming back to teach us." The father stood up quickly, looking embarrassed. "No, it's okay," Maya said, smiling for what felt like the first time in months. "I missed you too, Lily." The man extended his hand, then seemed to realize Maya's hands were occupied with Lily's hug, and awkwardly pulled it back. "I'm Daniel. Lily's dad. She talks about you all the time. You were her favorite teacher before." He trailed off, clearly not sure how to finish that sentence without making things awkward. "Before my accident," Maya finished for him. "It's okay to say it. I was in a car crash and now I use a wheelchair. It's not a secret." Daniel nodded, looking relieved at her directness. Lily's mother passed away about a year ago. Cancer. She was an artist, used to paint all the time. I thought bringing Lily here might help her connect with that part of her mom, but I'm useless with anything creative. I can barely draw stick figures. Most dads can't, Maya said gently. She looked at Lily, who had returned to her seat but was watching Maya with hopeful eyes. Want me to show you some tricks for painting butterflies? Lily nodded so enthusiastically that her glasses almost flew off. Maya wheeled herself up to the table and looked at the palette of colors. Her hands, which had been still for so long, suddenly remembered what to do. She picked up a thin brush and dipped it in yellow. The secret to butterflies, she explained, is that they're actually made of lots of tiny details. You don't paint the whole wing at once. You build it up, layer by layer, color by color. Watch. She demonstrated on a corner of the canvas, showing how to create the delicate veins of a butterfly wing, how to blend colors to create depth, how to add small touches of white to make it look like light was reflecting off the wings. Lily watched with absolute focus, her mouth slightly open in concentration. Daniel stood behind them, and Maya could feel him watching too. But it wasn't the uncomfortable staring she had experienced so many times since the accident. It was different. He was watching the way someone watches a musician play or an athlete compete, with genuine appreciation for a skill they don't possess. Now you try, Maya said, handing the brush to Lily. The little girl took it carefully and began to paint, following Maya's instructions. Her butterfly wasn't perfect, but it was starting to actually look like a butterfly. With each stroke, Lily's confidence grew. She started making her own choices about colors, adding her own creative touches. That's beautiful, Lily, Daniel said softly. Your mom would have loved it. Lily looked up at her father with a smile that transformed her whole face. Then she looked at Maya. Can you teach me more? Please? I want to get really good at this. Maya glanced at Isabella, who was standing near the door with tears in her eyes and a huge smile on her face. Then she looked back at Lily's hopeful expression, at Daniel's grateful eyes. Yeah, Maya heard herself say. I can teach you more. And just like that, without planning it or even wanting it, Maya found herself pulled back into the world of the living. It wasn't a dramatic transformation or a sudden healing of all her wounds, but it was something. It was a small light in the darkness she'd been living in. As they continued to work on the painting, with Lily asking a million questions and Daniel watching with obvious relief that his daughter was happy, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in 3 long months. She felt useful. She felt needed. She felt like, maybe, just maybe, she was more than what Robert and his mother had made her believe she was. It was just one afternoon. Just one little girl and her struggling father. But sometimes that's all it takes to remember that life isn't over just because one chapter ended badly. Sometimes a new chapter begins when you least expect it. In the most ordinary of moments. The art lessons became a regular thing. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Daniel would bring Lily to the community center, and Maya would be there, waiting with supplies and ideas for new projects. What started as a simple favor had turned into the highlight of Maya's week. For the first time since the accident, she had something to look forward to. Lily was like a sponge, absorbing every technique and tip Maya shared. The little girl had a natural talent that reminded Maya why she had fallen in love with teaching in the first place. But more than that, Lily's enthusiasm was infectious. She didn't see Maya's wheelchair. She didn't treat her differently or carefully. She just saw her teacher, the person who could help her create beautiful things. Daniel always stayed during the lessons, working on his laptop at a nearby table. He owned a small construction company, Maya learned, doing renovations and custom carpentry work. Since his wife's death, he had scaled back his projects dramatically, taking only local jobs so he could be home for Lily as much as possible. I used to take contracts all over the state, he told Maya one afternoon while Lily was focused on mixing the perfect shade of purple. But after losing Rachel, I realized that making more money wasn't worth missing my daughter's childhood. She needed me present. Maya found herself looking forward to these conversations almost as much as teaching Lily. Daniel had a quiet, steady presence that felt safe. He didn't ask intrusive questions about her accident or her canceled wedding. He treated her like a normal person, which was rarer than it should have been. One Thursday, Lily arrived at the center, unusually quiet. She barely spoke during the lesson, and her usual sparkle was missing. Maya noticed she kept rubbing her eyes behind her glasses. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Maya asked gently, setting down her brush. Lily's lower lip trembled. "Tomorrow is Mommy's birthday." She would have been 34. Maya's heart broke for this little girl carrying such big grief. She glanced at Daniel, who looked exhausted and heartbroken himself. "Tell me about your mom," Maya said softly. "What was she like?" Lily's eyes lit up despite her tears. "She was the best mom in the whole world. She used to sing all the time, even when she was sick, and she loved to paint. Our whole house has her paintings on the walls. She painted flowers and mountains, and one time she painted me as a fairy princess. She sounds wonderful," Maya said honestly. "She was," Lily whispered. "I miss her every single day. Sometimes I try really hard to remember her voice, but it's getting harder." Daniel stood up and came over, kneeling beside his daughter's chair. "That's why we have all those videos, remember? We can watch them whenever you want." Lily nodded but didn't look comforted. She turned to Maya with such earnest eyes that Maya felt it in her soul. "Miss Rodriguez, do you think people can see us from heaven? Do you think Mommy knows I'm learning to paint like her?" Maya thought carefully before answering. "I think if love is real, and I believe it is, then it doesn't just disappear when someone dies. Your mom's love for you is still here, in your heart, in your memories, in every beautiful thing you create. And yeah, I think she knows. I think she's proud of you." Lily threw her arms around Maya's neck and cried. Maya held her, rocking slightly, letting the little girl release some of the pain she'd been carrying. Daniel watched with tears in his own eyes, and Maya noticed him quickly wipe them away. After the lesson ended, and they were packing up supplies, Daniel approached Maya with a hesitant expression. "I know this is asking a lot," he began. "But tomorrow, for Rachel's birthday, Lily and I are going to the cemetery in the morning. Something Rachel would have loved. I thought maybe we could do an art project, something meaningful. Would you be willing to come to our house and help us? I'll pay you, of course. Whatever your rate is. You don't need to pay me," Maya said immediately. "I'd be honored to be there with you both." The next day, Isabella drove Maya to Daniel's house, a modest 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood. Daniel had built a ramp over the front steps earlier that week, he explained almost shyly, hoping that Maya wouldn't think it was too presumptuous. "I figured if you were going to visit, we should make it accessible," he said. "Plus, it's something I should have done anyway. Never know who might need it." Inside, the house was exactly as Lily had described. Paintings covered nearly every wall, bright and beautiful pieces that spoke of a woman who saw joy and color in the world. There were photos everywhere, too. Rachel had been lovely, with long dark hair and the same bright smile as her daughter. Maya noticed how clean everything was, but also how lived in and comfortable the house felt. This was a home, not just a building. Daniel had managed to keep it warm and welcoming, even through his grief. They set up in the dining room, spreading out supplies on the large wooden table. The project Maya had chosen was a memory canvas, where they would create a collaborative painting that incorporated all of Rachel's favorite things. "Lily, what did your mom love most?" Maya asked. "Butterflies," Lily said immediately, "and sunflowers, and the color yellow, and music. She loved when Daddy played guitar for her." "You play guitar?" Maya asked Daniel. He shrugged, looking embarrassed. "Not well. And I haven't played since she died. It hurts too much." They worked on the painting for over 2 hours. Maya guided them through creating a garden scene filled with sunflowers and butterflies. with musical notes floating through the air like magic. Lily painted with intense concentration, adding details that meant something only she and her father would understand. Daniel, despite claiming he had no artistic ability, managed to create surprisingly good sunflowers under Maya's patient instruction. As they painted, they talked about Rachel. Daniel shared stories about how they met in college, how she had convinced him to take a pottery class with her and he'd been terrible at it, but she'd laughed so hard she'd cried. Lily told stories about baking cookies with her mom, even though half of them always got burned because they were too busy singing and dancing to watch the timer. Maya found herself sharing too. She told them about her own losses, about the wedding that didn't happen, about feeling like her life had ended that day at the church. But it didn't end, Lily said matter-of-factly. In that way, children have of seeing things simply. You're here right now. You're alive. You're teaching me. That's not ended. Lily. Also what he won since. Also what he won self. Creating Lily won. Lily what he won since. Also one since. Also one since. Out of the mouths of babes, Maya thought, feeling tears prick her eyes. When the painting was finished, they stepped back to look at it. It was beautiful. In a chaotic, heartfelt way. Not perfect, not something you'd see in a gallery, but perfect for exactly what it was meant to be. A tribute. A memory. A way of keeping Rachel present in their lives. She would have loved this, Daniel said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you, Maya. This means more than you know. As they cleaned up the supplies, Lily suddenly asked, Miss Rodriguez, do you have a boyfriend? Lily, Daniel said quickly, his face turning red. That's not appropriate to ask. But Maya laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in a long time. It's okay. And no, Lily, I don't have a boyfriend. Good, Lily said decisively. Because I think you should be Daddy's girlfriend. You make him smile. And he hasn't smiled much since Mommy died. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Maya felt her own face heating up. But there was something in that awkward moment, something neither of them had acknowledged until a 7-year-old said it out loud. There was a connection between them. Something that had been building through art lessons and conversations, and shared grief and small kindnesses. Lily, Daniel finally managed. Miss Rodriguez is our friend. She's your teacher. That's all. For now, Lily said, shrugging like she knew something the adults hadn't figured out yet. Later, as Isabella drove Maya home, her sister couldn't stop grinning. So, Isabella said, dragging out the word. Daniel seems nice. Don't start, Maya warned. But she was smiling too. I'm just saying, the way he looks at you, that's not how someone looks at just a teacher or just a friend. And the way you light up when you talk about Lily? Come on, Maya. I haven't seen you this happy in years. Maya stared out the window, watching the neighborhood pass by. She thought about the wheelchair ramp Daniel had built. About how he never made her feel like she was different or less than. About how natural it felt to be in his home, with his daughter, creating something beautiful out of grief. She thought about Robert, who had promised forever and couldn't handle reality. And then she thought about Daniel, who had never promised her anything but showed up consistently, kindly, seeing her as a whole person. It's too soon, Maya said quietly. For both of us. He's still grieving his wife. And I'm still healing from everything that happened. Maybe, Isabella agreed. But maybe sometimes the right person shows up at exactly the right time. Even when we're not looking for them. Even when we're broken. Maybe especially then. Maya didn't respond. But deep in her heart, she wondered if her sister might be right. She wondered if this quiet, steady man, and his beautiful, grieving daughter, might be the beginning of something she never expected to find again. Hope. 2 months had passed since the memorial painting, and Maya's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The art lessons with Lily had expanded. Daniel now brought her 3 times a week, and Maya had even started teaching 2 other children, whose parents had heard about her patience and skill. She was starting to feel like herself again. Like she had a purpose beyond just surviving each day. But then everything came crashing down on a random Tuesday morning. Maya's mother came into her room with an envelope, her face pale and worried. "Mija, this came in the mail. It's from the hospital billing department." Maya opened it with shaking hands. The number at the bottom made her stomach drop. $18,000. An old bill from her accident that insurance had refused to cover, something about the ambulance service being out of network. They had 30 days to pay, or the debt would go to collections. "We don't have this kind of money," her mother said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Your father and I have been using our savings just to cover the monthly expenses. We're already behind on rent." Maya felt the familiar weight of guilt settle on her shoulders, the weight she'd been carrying since the accident. Her family had sacrificed everything for her. Her father had taken extra shifts as a night janitor. Her mother had picked up weekend work cleaning houses. Isabella had dropped out of community college to help with expenses. And it still wasn't enough. "There's something else," her mother continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "The landlord came by yesterday. He's raising our rent by $300 a month. We can't afford it, Maya. We've been looking for cheaper apartments, but everything accessible for your wheelchair costs even more. I don't know what we're going to do." Maya spent the rest of that day staring at the ceiling, doing math in her head that never added up to anything good. She thought about getting a job, but who would hire someone in a wheelchair with no recent work experience? She thought about applying for more assistance programs, but they were already maxed out on what they qualified for. She thought about her family losing their home because of her, and the thought made her want to disappear. She canceled Lily's lesson that afternoon, texting Daniel that she wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. She felt sick to her soul. But Daniel wasn't someone who took "I'm not feeling well" at face value, especially when it came from someone he'd grown to care about deeply. That evening, there was a knock on the Rodriguez family's apartment door. Maya heard her father answer it, and then heard Daniel's voice. "I'm sorry to come by unannounced. I just wanted to check on Maya. Lily's worried about her." Before Maya could wheel herself out to send him away, her father had already invited Daniel inside. He appeared in her doorway moments later, Lily holding his hand and carrying a drawing she'd made. "We brought you a get-well picture," Lily announced, coming over to hand Maya a colorful drawing of the three of them painting together. "Are you sick? Do you have a fever?" Maya looked at this sweet child and felt tears threatening. "I'm okay, honey. Just having a rough day." Daniel's eyes were sharp and concerned. He could clearly tell something was seriously wrong. "Mr. Rodriguez," he said, turning to Maya's father. "Would it be all right if I talked to Maya alone for a minute?" Her father nodded and took Lily to the kitchen, promising her some of the cookies Isabella had baked that morning. Once they were alone, Daniel pulled up a chair and sat facing Maya. "What's going on?" he asked gently. "And please, don't say nothing. I know you well enough by now to know when something's wrong." Maya tried to hold it together, but the genuine concern in his eyes broke through her defenses. The whole story came tumbling out. The medical bill, the rent increase, her family's impossible financial situation, the crushing guilt she felt for being such a burden on the people she loved most. "We're going to lose our apartment," she finished, wiping tears from her cheeks. "And it's all my fault. If I could just walk, if I could work a normal job, if I wasn't so useless." "Stop," Daniel said firmly. "You are not useless. You're not a burden. You had an accident. That's not your fault." "But my family is suffering because of me," Maya said. "That is my fault." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working like he was thinking hard about something. Then he stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street below. "I need to tell you something," he said finally. "I've been thinking about this for a few weeks now, but I wasn't sure how to bring it up without making things weird. After Rachel died, I bought a bigger house. I thought we'd need more space, that maybe having room for memories would help. But it's too big for just me and Lily. The house has a main floor with a bedroom, full bathroom, and everything else you'd need. It's completely accessible. No stairs. I had it designed that way because Rachel's mother used a walker toward the end of her life, and we wanted her to be comfortable when she visited. Maya's heart started beating faster. Daniel, what are you saying? He turned to face her. I'm saying that your family could live there. The ground floor could be yours, and Lily and I would stay upstairs. No rent. Just help with utilities maybe. When you can. I know it sounds crazy. I know we haven't known each other that long, but it makes sense. The space is just sitting there empty. You need a place to live, and honestly, having you around would be good for Lily. She's happier now than she's been since Rachel died. You've given her something to look forward to. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. Daniel, we can't accept that. That's too much. That's what friends do, he said simply. They help each other. You've helped my daughter more than you know. Let me help your family. People will talk, Maya said. They'll assume things. Unmarried man and woman living in the same house. Let them talk, Daniel shrugged. I stopped caring what people think a long time ago. What matters is doing the right thing. And this feels right. Maya shook her head. It's too generous. What would you even get out of this arrangement? Peace of mind knowing my daughter has a positive role model close by. Help around the house sometimes, maybe. Your mom's cooking, if she's willing to share occasionally. But mainly, I'd get to see you not drowning under stress that isn't your fault. I'd get to see Lily happy. That's worth more to me than rent money I don't actually need. Before Maya could respond, Lily came running back into the room, chocolate from the cookies smeared on her cheek. Daddy, can Miss Rodriguez come live with us? Please? I'll share my toys and everything. Daniel looked embarrassed. Lily, you weren't supposed to hear that conversation. But I want her to come, Lily insisted. Our house is so big, and sometimes it feels lonely. And Miss Rodriguez's whole family could come. Her sister is really nice, and her mom makes the best cookies. Maya looked at this little girl's hopeful face, at Daniel's earnest expression, and felt something shift inside her. For months, she had been thinking of herself as a burden, as someone who only took and never gave. But maybe that wasn't the whole truth. Maybe she had something to offer too. Maybe accepting help wasn't the same as being helpless. Can I talk to my family about it? Maya asked carefully. This is a big decision. Of course, Daniel said. Take all the time you need. The offer stands whether it's next week or next year. Just know that you have options. You're not trapped. That night, the Rodriguez family sat around their small kitchen table and talked for hours. Maya's father was hesitant, worried about accepting such generosity from someone who was essentially still a stranger. Her mother cried, overwhelmed by the possibility of not losing their home. Isabella was surprisingly practical about it. Look, Isabella said. I know it seems weird, but we're out of options. We've looked at every apartment in our price range, and none of them work for Maya's wheelchair. We can't afford to stay here. Moving in with Aunt Rosa means sleeping on her living room floor. Daniel's offer is the best option we have. And from what Maya's told me, he's a good guy. But what does he really want? Their father asked, voicing the question they were all thinking. Men don't just offer free housing to women they barely know, without wanting something in return. I don't think it's like that, Maya said quietly. I think he's just someone who lost his wife and knows what it's like to need help. Someone who sees his daughter happy for the first time in a year and wants to protect that. I think he's just a genuinely kind person. Those are rare, her mother said. But they do exist. They talked in circles for another hour before finally reaching a decision. They would accept Daniel's offer, but with conditions. They would pay a small amount toward utilities once Maya's father got his next paycheck. They would help around the house with cleaning and yard work. They would respect boundaries and privacy. And if at any point the arrangement wasn't working for anyone, they would find another solution. The next morning, Maya called Daniel and told him they accepted. She could hear the relief in his voice. "You won't regret this," he promised. "I'll start getting the ground floor ready. We can move you in whenever you're ready." "Daniel?" Maya said. "Thank you. Truly. I don't know how we'll ever repay you." "You already have," he replied. "You gave my daughter her smile back. That's worth more than money could ever buy." As Maya hung up the phone, she realized that sometimes life saves you in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes, the person you need shows up, disguised as someone who needs you. And sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing you can do. She wheeled herself to the window and looked out at the morning sun breaking through the clouds. For the first time in a long time, she felt something that had been missing since that terrible day at the church. She felt hope for the future. Real, solid hope. That maybe things could actually be okay. Moving day came 2 weeks later. Daniel had worked every evening after Lily went to bed, making sure the ground floor was perfect. He installed grab bars in the bathroom, widened doorways, and even built custom furniture with wider spaces underneath, so Maya's wheelchair could fit comfortably at tables and desks. When the Rodriguez family arrived with their belongings, Maya couldn't believe her eyes. The space was beautiful and thoughtful, in ways that made her throat tight with emotion. Daniel had clearly spent hours thinking about every detail that would make her life easier. "I hope it's okay," Daniel said, looking nervous as Maya explored the space. "If anything needs to be adjusted, just let me know." "It's perfect," Maya whispered, running her hand along a kitchen counter that was exactly the right height. "Nobody has ever done anything like this for me." Living together was an adjustment for everyone. The first few weeks were filled with awkward moments and careful politeness. Maya's mother insisted on cooking dinner for everyone most nights, and Daniel would join them downstairs, with Lily bouncing between the 2 floors like she'd been given the best gift ever. Slowly, the house began to feel like a real home. Maya's father and Daniel would sit on the porch after dinner, talking about sports and work. Isabella and Lily became inseparable, with Isabella teaching the little girl to braid hair and paint nails. Maya's mother filled the house with the smells of home cooking, and Daniel stopped eating frozen dinners for the first time in a year. But the real change happened between Maya and Daniel. Their friendship had always been easy, but living in the same house added layers of intimacy that neither had expected. They started having coffee together in the mornings before everyone else woke up. They'd talk about everything and nothing, sharing dreams and fears and bad jokes. Daniel told her about the guilt he carried over Rachel's death, how he sometimes wondered if he'd pushed for treatments hard enough or found the right doctors soon enough. Maya shared her fear that she'd never be more than her wheelchair, that she'd never find someone who could see past it. "I see past it every day," Daniel said one morning, looking directly into her eyes. "Actually, that's not even right. I don't see past it. I see it as part of you, part of your story, but not the whole story. You're funny and talented and patient and kind. You light up when you teach. You make my daughter laugh. You made me remember what it feels like to look forward to tomorrow. That's who you are." Maya felt her heart skip. Something had been building between them for months, something neither had wanted to name. But it was there, in every glance, every accidental touch, every shared smile. The turning point came 6 months after the Rodriguez family moved in. Maya had started teaching art classes full-time at the community center, and Daniel's construction business had landed a major contract. To celebrate, they decided to have a backyard barbecue with both families. It was a perfect summer evening. Maya's extended family came, along with some of Daniel's friends from work. Lily was running around with Maya's young cousins, shrieking with laughter. The yard was full of music and food and joy. Maya was watching it all from the patio when Daniel came and sat beside her. "Happy?" he asked. "Very," she said honestly. "I never thought I'd feel this way again." After the wedding, After Robert, I thought happiness was just something that happened to other people. Robert was an idiot, Daniel said flatly. I know I've never said it directly, but that man gave up something incredible. His loss. Maya turned to look at him. You really mean that, don't you? Every word. Daniel reached over and took her hand. It wasn't the first time they'd held hands, but this time felt different. Intentional. Maya, I need to tell you something. I've been trying to find the right time, but I don't think there is a right time. I've fallen in love with you. Not despite your wheelchair, or because I feel sorry for you. I love you because you're brave and creative, and you make me want to be a better person. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. I've been so scared to say it. Scared you'd realize you could do better. Scared of getting hurt again. Oh, I would never hurt you like he did, Daniel said fiercely. Never. You're not a burden or a responsibility. You're the woman I want to build a life with. If you'll have me. Before Maya could answer, Lily came running over. Are you kissing? Please tell me you're finally going to kiss. Both adults laughed, and Maya realized that everyone at the party had gone quiet, watching them. Her mother had her hands clasped together with tears in her eyes. Isabella was grinning. Even Maya's father, who had been protective and skeptical at first, was smiling. Well, Maya said, looking at Daniel with her heart in her eyes. We can't disappoint our audience. Daniel leaned in and kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. The backyard erupted in cheers and applause. Lily jumped up and down, screaming, I knew it! I knew it! Life wasn't perfect after that. Maya still had hard days when her disability felt overwhelming. Daniel still grieved Rachel, and probably always would, but they faced it together, building something new and beautiful from their shared pain and hope. Daniel proposed 6 months later, not with a fancy restaurant or a big production, but on a random Tuesday morning, over coffee. Marry me, he said simply. Be my wife. Be Lily's mom. Let's make this official. Maya said yes without hesitation. They married in the same backyard where they'd first kissed, surrounded by family and friends and flowers that Lily had helped plant. Maya wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair. Daniel wore a suit and cried through his vows. Lily stood between them as part of the ceremony, and when the officiant pronounced them married, she threw her arms around both of them, shouting, Now we're a real family. The reception was small and perfect. As Maya danced with Daniel, her wheelchair moving in sync with his steps as he held her close, she saw Robert standing at the back of the yard. Somehow he'd heard about the wedding and had shown up uninvited. Isabella noticed him first and started to go tell him to leave. But Maya stopped her. She wheeled herself over to where Robert stood, looking uncomfortable and out of place. What are you doing here? Maya asked calmly. I made a mistake, Robert said, the words tumbling out. The biggest mistake of my life. I should never have listened to my mother. I should have married you. I've been miserable ever since. Can we talk? Can we try again? Maya looked at this man who had broken her heart, who had humiliated her in front of everyone she knew, who had made her feel worthless. She felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no longing. Just pity. Robert, she said gently, you did me the biggest favor of my life when you walked away. You showed me what real love isn't, and you freed me to find what real love is. She gestured toward Daniel, who was watching from across the yard, ready to intervene if she needed him. That man built ramps for me before we were even dating. He sees all of me and loves all of me. He never once made me feel like less because of my wheelchair. You couldn't have given me that, even if you'd tried. But I want to try now, Robert pleaded. I've changed. Good for you, Maya said sincerely. I hope you have changed. I hope you become the kind of man who can love someone completely. But that someone isn't me. I'm married now. I'm happy, and I need you to leave. Robert opened his mouth to argue, but something in Maya's face must have convinced him it was pointless. He nodded once and turned to go. At the edge of the yard, he looked back. He's lucky to have you. I know, Maya said simply. And I'm lucky to have him. She wheeled herself back to Daniel, who pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. I'm perfect, she said. And meant it. That night, after the guests had gone home, and Lily was asleep upstairs, Maya and Daniel sat on the porch, watching the stars. The house behind them was full of both their families, all sleeping peacefully under one roof. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if Robert had married you? Daniel asked. Maya thought about it seriously. Honestly, I think I would have been miserable. I would have spent every day wondering if he regretted it. If I was holding him back, I would have made myself small trying to be less of a burden. That's not love. That's not a life. And now? Daniel asked. Now I wake up next to someone who thinks I'm beautiful. I have a daughter who draws me pictures and calls me mom. I have a career I love and a family that's bigger and more wonderful than I ever imagined. I have a husband who built me a ramp before he built me a ring. She laughed, turning to look at him. You know what the crazy thing is? I'm grateful for that day at the church. I'm grateful Robert left me. Because it led me here. To you. To this life. Daniel kissed her. Slow and deep and full of love. I'm grateful too. For all of it. The pain, the grief, the hard days. Because they all led us to each other. Somewhere inside the house, they heard Lily call out from a bad dream. Without hesitation, Maya wheeled herself inside, and Daniel followed. Together, they climbed the stairs, Daniel carrying Maya and her wheelchair behind them, and went to comfort their daughter, their family, their life. It wasn't the life Maya had planned on that day she sat in her wedding dress in a church, waiting for a ceremony that never came. It was better. It was real. It was built on genuine love and acceptance, and the kind of partnership that makes both people stronger. And every single day, Maya thanked the universe for that terrible, beautiful moment when everything fell apart, because it made space for everything to fall together in ways she never could have dreamed.